Before the pandemic, we were around 20 people, and we didn't really have. We were just playing around with an old, what was essentially an RC car, and then we were still working on stuff, but then the pandemic hit, and then we all went back to our homes and we started working from home, and motivation just dropped. And I mean, honestly, not even me, I was just, living day to day, confined, and nothing really motivated us. When we got back to school after a bunch of months, the dynamic just kept going like this. In December, we were very, very close to, just calling the mission off and disbanding and just leaving each of us on their own, paths and whatnot, until one of my teammates just sent me a link, and it was the European Rover Challenge. And we had a meeting to discuss it, and we just said, well, let's try. Worse than what it is right now, it cannot be. So we just tried, and we applied with a proposal. We started, doing some work. People started, showing interest and starting to work, because all of a sudden we had a clear goal, a clear deadline, and honestly an exciting project. Because I think that going from having an RC car and just saying, okay, we can do this task, but when is it for? Well, when it's done, and you have no clear deadlines, and the purpose and the objective is just so intangible that you depend a lot on your own passion, and if at any point you lose a little bit of it, it's over. We presented our preliminary design report without many hopes, because honestly at that point the project, we considered it to be at a very immature point. We didn't have much, to be honest, but since we had help from very talented people, and a master's student did her thesis with us, it was good enough to qualify. And so that's when the craziness began, because it was the beginning of summer, and we had some things. We had the structure, more or less. We 3D printed, because we also wanted to use this opportunity to learn new techniques and stuff that we didn't know. But that was basically it. And we started working quite heavily during summer, and all the subsystems started, coming together. We started getting very, very excited about the competition. Our main problems that we had this year was, first off, problems that we inherited from a long time ago. For example, the engines that we had were inappropriate for the drivers that we had for those engines, and other stuff like the materials that we used for the robotic arm were also maybe not ideal, because some parts broke on the way to Poland. One of the biggest issues we had was logistical issues. Once we were there, our entire rover was dead on arrival. So it was certainly a scary situation, because we had worked so hard to get to where we were at that point, and it didn't work. So we just got to the place we had rented and tried turning it on and performing all the health checks, and it was dead. So at that point it was a bit difficult for the team to accept. It was a challenging moment. But then the next day, someone in the programming team tried to program one of the engines with the camera processor. So what we had to do was, first off, we tested it and it worked. And then what we decided to do was to reprogram all the subsystems and bring them to the camera processor. And we spent our days there doing this, essentially. We had to forfeit the maintenance task because the arm was not ready. Our control scheme was busted, and it worked for a bit, and then it started spazzing out and acting erratically, and we decided to, for the better health of the jury and ourselves and the maintenance board and everything, we went there and we said, hey, it's not working. I'm sorry, but we will not be able to participate. And the jury was very accepting and very helpful, because they told us that we might be able to try if we fixed it in the long run, and also gave us some tips, like maybe ask this team or this other team. And so both the jury and the other teams were really, really helpful in this aspect. When we got to the navigation task, our camera processing software was running at the same time that everything else was running, so it was too slow, and in the end we were essentially blind for the navigation task. We did not know where we were. That was also a challenging moment because you're in front of the jury, and all the teams are there, and they saw everything, and the jury was asking, well, do you know where you are? We didn't know. For the probing task, our probes were to be placed by the arm, which was not working as before. So, problems start, cascading down, and the tasks start kind of falling apart. But still, compared to what we had the first day of the competition, it was still, for me, it was still a satisfying result considering the situation, because for the probing task, they told us that we could, take pictures of the probing places before placing the probe, and then essentially not placing the probe because we couldn't, but that picture could still count as points. And especially to perform the science task, which we didn't really have many science experiments on board because we had no resources or knowledge, to be honest. The science capabilities of our rover were limited. And we did everything we could, and we took all the pictures that we needed, and then we finished all the tasks and went to present the pictures, and we found out that our picture-taking scheme, or the software that took the pictures and saved them all with the same name. So from all the pictures that we had taken, we only had the last one, essentially. I mean, it was to be expected because we had slept very little and we had worked a lot, and we had essentially reprogrammed the entire rover in 2 days. And honestly, at that point, it had to happen, and it is what it is. That was our competition, When we applied for the European Rover Challenge, we didn't really believe we would get much far, because the team was demotivated. We had nothing. We barely knew how to control the rover in January when we applied. So we said, okay, our main focus will be 2022, but we will apply to 2021 to see just what they ask for and what they require of us, and to know what we know and what we don't know. It was a bit emotional for me, because once we got back, we decided that, well, we had worked a lot during summer, so we would take like a month of vacation and just to relax, take everything in. I planned to talk to multiple teachers and to go to the university where there are workshops where you can machine pieces and you can build stuff there, talking to electronics teachers and software teachers to have their help, essentially, when we need it, and to explain to them what we had done and what we lacked, and to ask for help, essentially. So in like a year's time, we went from not doing anything and just wanting to stop doing anything and just go our separate ways and just everybody go home and do whatever you want with your free time, to, well, I want to go again. We know what we missed, and we had some stupid mistakes that we could have avoided, and we want to make it better for next year. And we started to do a lot of more publicity in the university, start talking in different classes, and start talking to different teachers and getting more students on board. And this big snowball has started rolling, and it still hasn't stopped. And it was essentially thanks to the European Rover Challenge and the team and the rest of the competitors, which also gave us so many good ideas and who essentially taught us how to ask for help. Because when we had prior contacted other people in our university and other businesses around us during summer, nobody really paid much attention to us. And it was mainly because our approach was flawed. We asked them if they would help us without knowing essentially how they would help us, and without having a cooperation plan, and without saying, okay, if you help us, you will have this, your logo will be in this part of the rover, or your logo will be on our website, on our social media, etc. We did none of that. We just went and asked, hey, we qualified for this, please help. And not many people answered, and we started changing our approach in this aspect, and it's worked. There's multiple master's theses and student theses that are essentially subsystems of the rover, because it's not the same to make a thesis that just a concept or a simulation in the computer, but if I can build it with my own hands and then test it on an international competition, it's much more rewarding for the student. I'm very excited for this year because I mean, compared to last year at this point we barely even knew what we had to put on the preliminary design report, and this year we have already designed all the parts, we have an inventory of all the components, and we have a much clearer concept, and we are working a lot more focused on it. I hope that we can show our work next September in Poland. Why the European Rover Challenge? Well, I mean, it was one of the competitions we found. Mainly it was because a teammate found the link and sent it to us, and we saw that it was an exciting project. There are plenty of, you know, technical or like polytechnic universities in Spain, and so far the UPC has been the only one, which I also found surprising because, you know, being from Europe, such a project is very enticing, I think, to robotics teams from you know, Europe, and I don't really know why. Last year our main objective was to survive, which we barely did, and this year's goal is to, you know, last year we got 10th place, and this year our goal is to get higher than 10th place. Basically, my goal for this year is to achieve a good baseline, because last year we also tried to do a lot of stuff, you know. So this year what we're going for is we have already, you know, except, okay, for example, in the maintenance task, when you have to connect an Ethernet cable, we know it's a very complicated thing. If we have time at the end, we will try, but we are not preparing for it for this year because we want to achieve a good baseline, so that next year they can grab that baseline and iterate upon it and make it better. And maybe next year, you know, just build a better ground station, or maybe put even more subsystems or improve the subsystems that are already there. But this year, what we want to do is have something with which we can go to the competition and achieve a decent result, higher than last year, and try to at least finish every task. We are not going for perfection in every task, but we want to finish every task. And once we know we can finish every task with what we have, we can then start working to improve it for next year, for example. And that's our goal for this year. And I hope that if we can achieve it, then next year's we'll see the team reaching even higher and learning even more, because one of the goals or of our association has always been two things. First, to put to use the knowledge and skills we learned during the degree, and also to transmit knowledge from older generations to newer ones. I am on the very end of my education. I'm finishing my master's degree, and then I'm leaving. Before I left, I wanted to have, you know, the younger generations that were motivated to work with us. The other team leader is much younger than me. It's like three or 4 years younger, you know, almost an entire degree of difference in time. And we chose him because we saw that he was very young and he could learn from us, because there's a bunch of older guys and they can learn from us. And then when they are in our position, they can teach people like him now, younger than him. And so that this knowledge can keep being imparted. And I think that if we achieve a good baseline for this year, we can use that baseline to teach the new members how to do it, essentially. And so if we achieve a good baseline, we think that next generations of students that come to this team will be insanely much more prepared than us. Make sure to be a bit realistic on your assumptions, you know. For example, us this year, we are not going for example, automation stuff. There's some tasks which give a lot of points to automation if the robot does it in an autonomous manner. But we know that with our knowledge and with what we have right now, it might be biting off more than we can chew. So I think it's very important to be realistic. You don't need to go for all the points in every task. It's not, I mean, if you want to win and be the top number one, I mean, sure, okay, go for it. All the power to you. But I think it's important to have this mentality that you're not going there to compete against others. You are competing against yourself. The goal for the European Rover Challenge, I think, is to challenge yourself to something and to achieve it the best you can. And if you go with a mentality that, oh, we're going to be better than this team, or we're going to be better than that team, or we are going to win in this task or whatever, that's the path to disappointment. And after disappointment, of course, you can bounce back and start working again. Obviously, we were also disappointed last year, but since our goal was not to win this task or to get X amount of points, I think it was easier for us to bounce back after it, because our goal was to beat ourselves, and our own flaws and our own limitations, and break through and just do the best we can.